Keepers of the Sword Productions, Shugborough Inscription Decoding of Shepherd's Monument. Shugborough Hall and its estate grounds sit in the tranquil valley of River Trent in Staffordshire, England. During the 18th century, a number of ancient Roman and Greek-style monuments were built on the property, evidently attempting to reconstruct the idealized pastoral setting of a Grecian Arcadia, in unison with the mythological idea of Elysium, the paradise for happiness and the home of the blessed after death. However, one particular monument has caught the eye of many because of its mysterious letters found underneath its carved relief. The enigmatic inscription on Shepherd's Monument consists of the letters D, O-U, O-S, V-A, V-V, M, with the first and last letters of D and M set lower than the rest. These letters caption a carved relief of a mirror image of Nicolas Poussin's painting, The Shepherds of Arcadia. To date, this is one of the world's top uncracked cipher texts that has puzzled the best cryptologists for well over 250 years. Theorists have proposed the inscription as a biblical message, acronyms for a Latin phrase, initials for the residents of the hall, instructions to the Holy Grail, engraved ancient love note, affiliated to the Priory of Zion, and perhaps the Knights Templar, connected to the Oak Island mystery for a possible treasure, are considered a complete hoax to fan the flames of an overactive imagination. However, the message I found is a reoccurring theme that surfaces quite often in my decodings. Shugborough Hall was the Anson family's ancestral home of the Earls of Lichfield. Thomas Anson, an elected member of the House of Commons for over 20 years, commissioned Flemish sculptor Peter Schumacher's to carve the monument's relief. Schumacher's artwork was paid for by Thomas's younger brother, Admiral George Anson. Interestingly, though, very little is known about Thomas, or at least has survived the ravage of time, which has been explained off as modesty, secrecy, and/or censorship. The gap in the history of his life includes not even a historical footnote of his legal career as a purported lawyer. After his father's death in 1720, it's known that he traveled extensively. Nevertheless, much is known about his younger brother George, who circumnavigated the world and became fabulously rich after capturing a Spanish treasure ship in the early 1740s. While George took over the world, Thomas at times was back home coveting privacy without ever taking a wife. Nicolas Poussin's painting, known as Les Burges d'Arcadie, or The Shepherds of Arcadia, is also known as Et in Arcadia Ego, from the Latin inscription on the tomb that shows the shepherds pointing at it. The inscription has a number of loose translations from Latin to English, such as, "And in Arcadia I am," "I also was in Arcadia," "I the deceased too lived in Arcadia," "I, death, am also in Arcadia." Even in an idyllic paradise of an Arcadian pastoral world, death is inevitable. The interesting aspect of this phrase is that it can also be an unfinished sentence, even in Arcadia I, with an ellipsis. The main reason the Shugborough inscription has never been decoded is because the word ego must be translated with the D through M cipher. Ego is Latin for the pronoun I, as in me, myself, and I. However, let's first analyze the word Arcadia. Arca is the Greek word for chest or coffer, akin to the word coffin, which could partially explain the appearance of the sarcophagus on top of the tomb that is not in the original painting. The Greek suffix for the word Arcadia is dia, which means goddess. Dia is also a Greek preposition meaning through, between, across, by, or passing through, and is akin to the Greek word dio, or the Greek suffix di, meaning to. In fact, the English word duo comes from the Greek word dio. So far, the messages from the word Arcadia are chest, goddess, through, across, and to. Duo is representing the two chests or coffins of the tomb and the sarcophagus. But additionally, the word duo also infers two people associated with each other, which points to the two faces found on the top facade of the monument, and their presence will be explained after the decoding. The goddess's name that we're looking for is Tanit, or it can be pronounced Tanit, but it's spelled with an E at the end in the complete message, to indicate that she's a Canaanite goddess. The T at the beginning of her name will be added later in the decoding. The suffix ite indicates followers of an idea, doctrine, or movement, or a noun denoting a person associated with a place, tribe, or leader. Latin, Greek, and French use this suffix to mean being connected to or belonging to. Tanit is the goddess of fertility, and her rival Maat, the Semitic god of death in the underworld, is also found in this message to symbolize the powers that oppose life and fertility. In fact, the offset letters D and M in the cipher represent the words death and Maat, which in this case are synonymous. Apparently, the Anson brothers were exposed to Tanit goddess worship during their lengthy travel sojourns at times when exploration of other religions was becoming in vogue. Let's decode the message first, and then analyze its meaning later. A blow-up of the hand surrounding the caption on the tomb shows the man on the right with his thumb partially over the R of the word Arcadia. And the letters on the left are E-T, I-N, A, with ego visible underneath. Because the relief is a reverse image from the original Poisson painting, the code writer wants you to read the E-T-I-N-A inscription backwards for the name Anit, which, as mentioned, comes from the word Canaanite and has the same root as the Hebrew name Shana, meaning grace or favor. Anit will translate into Tanit mainly from the D and M cipher, and Mat will be translated from the word ego. Follow along because the decoding is not difficult to understand. The first word in the message is duo, which is representing the tomb and the sarcophagus, and also the two faces on top of the monument. So from the D and M cipher, we will move the U back one from DOU to DUO. All U's found in the cipher will move back one. The two V's in the cipher are actually U's because U's and V's were synonymous throughout most of history. We found that out in my Oak Island decoding. You can think of these two V's as a W, as it's called W. So this translates into OSVAUUM. The rule that all U's move back one applies to the alphabet and moving along the alphabet. So one back from a U lands you on T. So the new translation is OSVATTM. For now, we'll ignore the O and only decode the remaining letters around the two T's. There are 8 letters between the D and M, and the number 8 is the second key, telling you to count along the alphabet, backwards or forwards from each letter. The original letter is not counted in this translation. The letters spell out Anit with 2 T's, and later we'll readjust it to 1 T, as we found earlier from the mirror image message on the monument's tomb. So far we have duo o Anit with 2 T's, but we still have the Latin word ego to translate by going forward 8 for each of the 3 letters. This spells out mo, M-O-W, and once again the W signifies 2 U's, and then you move 1 back along the alphabet for 2 T's, for the name Mat, which is Tanit's adversary of death, and also has too many T's. So far we have duo o Anit Mat. At this point it's obvious what the message is, and we only have to move 2 T's around to finish the complete message. Because there are 10 letters in the D and M cipher, the next and last key is 10 for the count. So now we want to move the first T in Mat back 10, including the T in the count, and counting the space between the names Tanit and Mat. Next we want to move the last T in Anit back 8, including the T, and the space in the count for the message duo to Tanit Mat. Duo to Tanit and Mat, that is the complete message, is more like saying duo to life and death. Now you understand why the D and M were offset under the majority of the other letters, because they mean death and Mat, the god of death. Mat translated from the word ego, indicating to me death of self, and giving yourself to a higher cause than the conscious collective. This prompts a number of questions. For who are Tanit and Mat? Whose faces are on the top of the monument? And how does this all connect to Shugborough and the Anson brothers? Tanit was a Phoenician Canaanite lunar deity, symbol of fertility, and heavenly goddess of war, and Mot was their god of death, drought, and the underworld. The land of Canaan encompassed Lebanon, Israel, and parts of Syria and Jordan. Canaanites were diverse groups of settled and nomadic tribes. The seafaring Phoenicians are considered direct descendants of the original Canaanites, who had extensive trade routes that colonized the Mediterranean Sea during the 7th through the 3rd century BC. In 1814 BC, incredibly intelligent Dido fled Tyre after the murder of her husband and was the founder and first queen of Carthage, a city that became a dominant power in the 5th century BC and is now modern-day Tunisia. At its peak, Carthage ruled over 300 Mediterranean cities. Therefore, it's no surprise with the extent of their travels, trade, rulership, and clout that their religious beliefs spread far and wide. Carthage eventually fell to Rome in 146 BC. Tanit was a virginal mother goddess, protector of Carthage, and sky ruler of the sun, moon, stars, and even the sea. Symbolically, she was identified with the crescent moon and solar disk. Over time and space, she merged with the moon goddess Astarte, which was the chief deity of Tyre, and was connected to other goddesses such as Sumer's Iana, Mesopotamians Ishtar, and Egypt's Hathor. The Romans and Greeks identified her with many different goddesses that they worshipped over time. I attempted to categorize them by similarities. Her Egyptian war counterpart was the goddess Neth. Although she goes by many names, many start with the letter A, probably from the Arabic and Aramic influences. One thing that is very distinctive of hers is her glyph, called the sign of Tanit, which is a simple triangular body, stick arms with some of the arms sometimes raised up, and a circular head. There are many different style depictions of Tanit's sign, and they were found on steles and carvings and tilings. She was also associated with the goddess Asherah, name meaning wreath, who is considered the wife of El and the creator of humanity and father god of the Canaanites. Asherah is symbolically identified with the Caduceus, sun, trees, or a sacred wooden pole located near sites of worship. Harvest wreaths are connected to anima, soul that was believed to possess a spirit, breath, or life essence, and at death a wreath represents eternal life. This correlates to the 3 wreaths alternately positioned between the 2 faces on the top of Shepherd's Monument, and as well the wreath displayed on the end of the sarcophagus on the relief. The center wreath on the monument displays what looks like a sideways cross inside a wreath. To many people this would symbolize the cross within a crown, but in this instance, to me, it is a T for Tanit within the wreath crown to embody immortality. Now if you take the basic form of a circle and a cross, the symbol representing Earth, Mother Earth, or the Earth Goddess, it appears the message is Earth Goddess. Tanit's male consort was Baal Haman, Baal meaning Lord, Haman perhaps meaning brazier, or indicating the solar fury of the sun. He was the lord of heavens, rain, fertility, and vegetation. He conceivably was Baal Karanaean, lord of 2 horns, considered El the creator. He was also identified as Dagon, god of grain and fertility. Baal, god of life and fertility, was in constant odds with Mot, god of death and barrenness. Heaven, life, and rain belonged to Baal, while the underworld, death, and drought belonged to Mot. Mot was purportedly the son of the Canaanite father god El. El is associated with the Titan Cronus and the Roman god Saturn, and Mot is associated with the Canaan Phoenician god King Moloch of sacrificial fire. However, he also went under a variety of bynames. The Canaanites, Egyptians, Aramics, Samaritans, and Nabateans spelled death MWT. Thus, this might explain the association of the W being involved in the decoding. The Canaanites believed when the soul departed the body, it goes to the underworld land of Mot. In the cyclic battle of desiccation of Mot, to the life-giving reign of Baal, There's a likeness to the biblical story of Elijah's battle with Baal during a devastating drought. Lore hands down the story that God showed his superiority over the main Canaanite god Baal. When Elijah's sacrificial bull was incinerated by fire from heaven, and then later God provided rain to end the drought. Amazingly, in my last video titled Sword Brothers History, Seal Translation, and Templar Oak Island Connection, the Sword Brothers seal that I use for my YouTube channel logo actually translated into the message invoking Elijah Christ from Livonia. As stated in the book of Matthew, Elijah will truly come first and restore all things to bring the long-awaited redemption of God's presence to earth. In the same video, I decoded a number of seals in order to understand the Sword Brothers seal, and surprisingly, at least to me, I found Tanit's name on the Teutonic Order seal. On top of that, Tanit was briefly mentioned in my Black Madonna decoding video of a Canary Island Madonna with a message stitched onto her garments because the native Berbers from North Africa worship Tanit. It really is hard to believe this is a coincidence when you factor in the cross pendant that was found at Smith's Cove on Oak Island that has been tentatively identified as Tanit's. As incredible as this may seem, all the previous 9 videos on this channel are all connected one way or another, and all roads seem to lead back to the Sword Brothers. Intriguingly, the brothers named their whole area surrounding the Baltic Sea Terra Mariana. Terra can be translated into earth or earth goddess, Mari means sea, and Anna has the same root as the Hebrew name Shana, meaning grace or favor. Therefore, Terra Mariana is espousing the earth and sea goddess of grace and favor. In fact, the German spelling of Anna with 2 N's is a neat with 2 T's, as we found in the Shugborough Decoding, which once again draws your attention back to the German origins of the Sword Brothers and Teutonics. It appears there was, or still is, an extensive underground network of religious orders that continue to worship the female earth goddess. The identity of the 2 faces on the facade above the archway of Shepherd's Monument leads back to the clue of Arcadia, the lost world of idyllic bliss. Arcadia was the home of Satyr Pan, who was the mythological god of shepherds, flocks, groves, music, fertility, and sex. While Carthage was hitting its prime circa the 5th century BC, so was Pan's popularity. Therefore, I believe the horned head on the monument is Pan. Pan worshippers venerated Pan in caves and grottos, as was the Black Madonnas. Pan and his happy entourage of satyrs were wild and orgiastic drunken followers of Dionysus, with hedonistic consumption of wine and sex as their main religious focus. Dionysus is the god of grape harvest, wine, fertility, ritual madness, and religious ecstasy. And in the majority of the paintings, Pan is chasing down a woman for sex, since he hadn't caught up with the Me Too movement. Pan was the only immortal god that evidently died, but how it happened was pure hearsay by a whispering voice in the wind. His death supposedly symbolized the end of paganism and the birth of Christianity. The same is true for the defeat of Baal by Elijah, which was also considered a turning point of Christianity. Duo is the first word in the message and is indicating 2 persons commonly associated with each other. In Greek mythology, a satyr is also known as a Selenos. In this case, the only renowned bald-headed figure connected to Pan is Silenas, the inebriated foster father and tutor of Dionysus. Silenas is pictured with and without a beard, but always bald and later usually fat and slovenly drunk. Nevertheless, he is well known to have lucid moments of wisdom. His philosophy was that it's best not to be born at all, and next to that, it's best to die than to live. He said this because he believed humans carry the seed of evil genius and are precarious offspring of hard fortune. Thus he declared the condition of dead to be better than that of the living. However, hedonistic drinking was foremost in his mind, rather than the plight of humans, and wild partying, music, and sex was Pan's main focus. So how does this connect to Shugborough and Shepherd's Monument? Speaking of Dionysian partying, Thomas Anson was a member of the Society of Dilettante. that was well known for debauchery, because little information has survived about Thomas's life, and the majority about George's covers his professional life. We'll have to rely on the activities of societies and clubs that they were members of, and as well Thomas's friends' activities related to these aristocratic alliances. The Society of Dilettante was a gentleman's club for those who had grand toured Italy in 1734 and maintained an interest in Italian classic art and Greek architecture. In the book History of the Society of Dilettante, Thomas is cited as a founding member, and George is mentioned only as Lord Anson military hero. The book itself is mainly minutes of meetings and logistics of running the society. Horace Walpole, devil's advocate of anything that breathes, often commented that the society's nominal qualifications as having been in Italy, and the real one was being drunk. The two chiefs, Lord Middlesex and Sir Francis Dashwood, who were seldom sober the whole time they were in Italy. So it appears they seem to have taken the word dilettante quite serious, which means to take delight. And on the other hand, it's about a person who cultivates an area of interest without any real commitment or knowledge. In this historical book, it shows images of two interesting boxes that were commissioned by the society. The first was a very strange ballot box used for secret elections that has a woman with her legs spread about the aperture of the box, and the second was an elaborately decorated box coined the Tomb of Bacchus to hold the society's records. Bacchus is the Roman name of Dionysus. This tomb has Bacchus lounging nude on the lid. However, this tomb has similar features or themes that are found on Shepherd's Monument, to include 3 wreath-like ornaments along the front, a woman's face on the lock area, and pastoral animals along the bottom. And a third image that caught my eye in the book was titled Ivory Relief Let on the back of the tomb, that displays what looks like a winged-footed god Hermes helping a goddess step down into a grotto. Could this be Tanit? Could the woman's face on the front of the tomb be Tanit? Aside from items with sexual connotations and an interest in mythology, the Society funded and accomplished some very serious excavations in the name of science. One such project was an archaeological dig at the Temple of Bacchus at Teos. In 1786, the dilettante Richard Payne Knight published a treatise titled The Worship of Priapus, the god of fertility and male genitals. In a nutshell, Knight believed art is religion and religion is sex. Some have coined the dilettante's activities as Eleusinian mysteries, referring to the cult of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. The kista, sacred chest or box, or kalathos, the lidded basket, is reportedly where the secrets of the Eleusinian mysteries were contained. And a sarcophagus is considered a krista, so could this be the reason for the appearance of the sarcophagus on top of the tomb found on the monument's relief? And perhaps these beliefs stem from the Dionysian mysteries rituals that used intoxicants and other trance-inducing techniques such as dance and music to remove inhibitions and social constraints, liberating the individual to return to a natural state. These dilettantes were well known for imbibing various substances, so perhaps there was emergence of the Eleusinian and Dionysian mysteries. And in the end, after death, it appears they hoped the party would never end and just change venue. Thomas was also a member of the Divan Club for those who had visited the Ottoman Empire with more than just a passing interest in art and culture of the Middle East. The club was founded in 1744 by Sir Francis Dashwood and John Montague, 4th Earl of Sandwich. However, after 2 years, the Divan Club closed its doors only for Dashwood to found the Order of Knights of the St. Francis of Wycombe, also known as the Hellfire Club. Wycombe, Dashwood's home, was considered a pleasure palace, as Shugborough had a landscape park containing many small temples and decorative folly buildings, so it appears Dashwood was not only a bon vivant, but had interest in elaborate architecture with small folly buildings such as the Temple of Music, Temple of Venus, and the Triumphal Arch. Hellfire meetings were held in the nearby Hellfire Caves. that contained a warren of caverns off the main tunnel, with the inner temple located directly under the St. Lawrence Church and Mausoleum, that was surprisingly rebuilt by Dashwood himself. Interestingly, Ben Franklin was a close friend of Dashwood, and in fact Franklin had a cavern named after him, so America's puritanical foundation might not be so white as the driven snow. Horace Walpole comes through again with incendiary comments about Dashwood's Hellfire Club, saying the members practiced with rigorous pagan. Bacchus and Venus were the deities to whom they almost publicly sacrificed. However, Walpole's sexual orientation was always in question from his effeminate condition and lack of female company, so it sounds like Walpole was ticked off that he wasn't one of the boys. A late 1750s painting of Dashwood parodies Renaissance image of Francis of Assisi. The Bible has been replaced by a copy of the erotic novel Elegante Latina Sermones, Taste of Latin Language, and the profile of Dashwood's friend Lord Sandwich peers down at him from the halo. These guys were really characters. I enjoyed researching this part of the video very much. There were other societies and clubs, but there really is no reason to go on. Rake was the word at the time for a hellraiser who habituated in immoral conduct of wine, women, and song. Witch is now Beer, the old lady in television. Aside from being rakish, libertine and debauchee were other words used to describe members of these makeshift societies and clubs. These guys were a party-hardy group of men that appeared to have taken a page out of the Dionysus Handbook for debauchery and drunkenness, and that Thomas Anson was part of some of this depravity but stayed in the shadows. So there was an erotica worship intrigue along with Grecian architect interests. The Shugborough Shepherd's Monument message is duo to Tanit Maat. Make of this what you will, but it appears whomever worshipped Tanit and Maat were hoping for a paradise, Elysium fields, Norse Valhalla, or Muslim Jannah, through the concept of Greek Arcadia, for obtaining blissful delight in an immortal afterworld. Now let's finish the decoding of Shepherd's Monument. The remaining letters, RCA, DIA, that was not part of the initial decoding, is an anagram for Arcadia. Arc meaning half moon, curve, crescent moon, or the sun's apparent motion in the sky, and Dia is for goddess. Half moon or sickle of the moon is the waxing and waning of the moon, a sign of fertility and related to life and death. So clues were left all over the place to reinforce this decoding, and that this translation Arcadia is meaning crescent moon goddess. I have one more aside note. There appears to be another layer to this mystery, as the popularity of the phrase "it in Arcadia ego" intensified when Poisson's painting was connected to a lost treasure of Rennes des Chateaux. Word has it that this saying is also the official motto of the Priory of Zion. Some contend the saying is a code for passing along secret doctrines for Pythagorean, Gnostic, Kabbalistic, and Hermetic beliefs. Well, the Shugborough inscription on Shepherd's Monument was certainly an interesting decoding. Next, I tentatively plan a video on the sacred geometry of my Oak Island treasure location. Or perhaps I'll do another seal translation for the Priory of Zion. So stay tuned. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment.